school district. At this time, I would ask you to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance as we read.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I do call this meeting to order for this evening. We kind of had a light agenda, so we'll see how things go. At this time, we'll be having student staff recognition and board reports. I understand that Ms. Simmonsdale is working hard, so she will not be here tonight. That's good. Is anyone else to report this evening? Dr. Dante. Thank you, Dr. Dante. Reading of correspondence. Is there any correspondence for this evening?
No, sir.
We have no correspondence. Recognition of visitors. Hopefully everyone will sign the paper on the back. It's important to know who is here. And at this time, we will move into public comment period. Hopefully you filled out a yellow card. The yellow card helps us with knowing what your topic is, gives you something to follow as a guideline, and recognize those individuals who got to give public comment. We ask the public comment based on policy 93B is related to this evening and related to the school board matters in the school, and your comments hopefully will be 3 minutes in length. Mr. Michael Deal, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to open this evening with a word of prayer. Those that do believe in prayer, please join me. Eternal Father, we thank you so much for your compassion and your love. Lord, this evening we ask you to come and meet with each individual, not only here present in this building, but throughout the school district. We hold our board members up to you, and we ask that you give them wisdom, understanding in making decisions that are to the benefit of our students, our teachers, and our staff. We ask, Father, that you would bring comfort and peace in a troubling time that we do live in, that you alone, Father, are able. The word says that you are God of the impossible, and so we're asking you to do the impossible. Father, thank you for the love that you have for each and every individual, whether they believe in you or whether they don't. You still have that love for them. So we thank you, we honor you, and we say, come this evening, and you direct every aspect of this meeting that will bring benefit not only to the students, but to the teachers, the staff, and to the parents. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Mr. Deal. Rosie McCray, please.
At the February 18th board meeting, the board discussed an agreement with a psychological services provider. During that discussion, board members expressed concern about students having access to mental health services without parental consent. They were assured by teachers, counselors, and even the solicitor that this was not of concern here at Big Spring. During that discussion, one of the board members made a comment about preventing teachers from going rogue and getting services for students without parental consent. That same board member made some comments about IEPs this evening at the DIG committee meeting. He lovingly described how his own time as a student with an IEP was impacted by a teacher who recommended things that, as he said, may not have been appropriate but worked for him, and she worked closely with his parents to make his learning experiences the best they could be. How can someone be so glad for that nuanced experience from a teacher and then in the same breath be so skeptical of teachers today making statements like teachers are going rogue? It seems like a double standard to me. I was discussing that comment last 2 weeks ago at the dinner table with my first grader, who spoke up pretty quickly when she heard that a board member didn't trust her teacher, and she very adamantly told me how much she trusts her own teacher, how her teacher would never do anything to make her students have any sort of danger put in front of them. She loves her teacher, and she doesn't understand how someone could question what teachers are doing in the classroom. And she, once again this evening, when I said I was coming to the board meeting, asked me to make sure that that board member understood how much the students appreciate their teachers. She's 6. So I would just ask that you please put a little more trust in the teachers that are here at the district. Not only do the students like them, but the parents of the students do generally trust the teachers that are here at the schools. So please consider that from a 6-year-old and her mother.
Thank you. Those are your comments. Ms. Laura Kaufman, please.
On February 20th, 2024, the Big Spring School Board approved Operation Lost Sheep. The name of the committee was subsequently changed to the Disenrollment Investigation and Grievance Committee. Its responsibilities were not changed. The responsibilities of this committee are as listed: investigate and identify the reasons why students are leaving the Big Spring School District for cyber charter schools or charter schools. Provide comprehensive findings along with action items to the Board of Directors for consideration and implementation. The results have been presented and recommendations have been made. This committee has fulfilled its responsibilities. The committee was not created to survey new students, teachers, or graduates. It was not created to carry out the recommendations it presented to the board. It was not formed to create task forces or to discuss discipline. It was not created to investigate KOLA, the Big Springs cyber program. This committee is now acting outside of its approved purpose. The committee is now usurping the power of the board and acting in isolation. Further, this committee has spent a year and has nothing to show but a handful of surveys completed by less than 2% of our families. I don't think our taxpayers are going to support any changes based on less than 2%. Let's stop wasting time. As permitted under PA Act 65, Section 712.1, I am asking that the board vote to add an item to tonight's agenda. I am asking that you vote to add a motion to dismiss the Disenrollment, Investigation, and Grievance Committee, as it has fulfilled its responsibilities as approved at the February 20th, 2024 school board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you all for your comments. Mike Byers, please.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to share my concerns about item 9G, which proposes to monitor students receiving therapy during school. My concerns are as follows. First, mental health services are protected by federal confidentiality law, and including protected health information without consent, i.e. progress measures, in a report to this board would, from my perspective, be a violation of the law and expose the district to potential lawsuits. The educational measures suggested cannot be used as a proxy to determine whether or not therapy is having its intended impact. Second, I'd ask each of you to think of this, each of you who are parents, to think from that perspective. Think about the countless decisions each of us make every day to try to do right by our kids. Think about one of those decisions being to engage and support your child in therapy. This proposal is inserting the school board into that incredibly personal and private decision. How would you feel if you had to explain and justify your child's decision to remain in therapy to a school board? How would your child feel? This would be an extraordinary overreach. Protect the rights of our students and their parents. Trust them to make good decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for your comments. Tiffany Warner, please.
Good evening. I am also speaking this evening as a concerned educator, parent, and community member about item 9G, request for a monitoring system. The concern stated in this item refers to the loss of instructional time and creating a report monitoring student progress due to this loss. Some students who participate in these services actually lose less instructional time because they don't need to physically leave the school building during school hours. There's no travel time to appointments other than students walking from class to the location where they are meeting with their counselor. When their session is over, they're able to return to the classroom to continue their learning. If students need to leave school for these same services, there's travel time to and from the appointment, as well as the time that's set aside for the appointment itself. Also, some families are not always able to provide their students the opportunity to participate in these services outside of the school day due to work schedules and other various obstacles. Allowing students the opportunity to meet during the school day within their school building also provides an opportunity to service more students who are in need of these services. Traumas and situations involving mental health cannot be measured using state testing or other district-approved benchmark measures. Counseling services are providing support to these individuals who are struggling at this time. This recommendation would make students whose families choose to utilize these services feel that their mental and emotional needs are being scrutinized by the school board because they require meeting with a counselor at that time. My philosophy as an educator has always been to put the mental well-being of my learners first. If they know they are loved and cared for, then they will be able to work to their greatest potential. If my learners are in need of outside counseling during the school day, then I will do everything in my power to make sure that any learning that is missed be made up at another time. Students don't miss out on their education during these counseling sessions. They just receive what they missed at a different time compared to their peers. This is what teachers do. We're flexible and support our students in whatever way we can to be there in their time of need. Thank you for your time and for all that you do for the Big Spring School District.
Thank you, Tiffany, for your comments. Adam Ogle, please.
Good evening. I apologize for my voice. It's important to reflect on what we can do better. Continuous improvement is a core outcome of lifelong learning, and it's something that we strive to instill in all of our students, and it's something that we as educators try to model every day when we come and we work with them here at Big Spring. I want something to be very clear here tonight based on something that was mentioned at DIG. Big Spring does address bullying. The idea that we need new policies or the idea that the policy committee is somehow going to do something of substance to address this problem implies that we are not already committed to keeping our kids safe. That's just absolutely not true. We teach our kids strategies like stop, walk, talk. We implement programming such as PBIS in our elementary and middle schools. We teach them if they see something to say something. Don't be a bystander. If you're concerned about coming and talking on your own, bring a friend with you. We encourage our staff to be on the lookout for these things. Big Spring has had a bullying policy in place for many years, and not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it's state law. Our bullying policy defines bullying. It defines how bullying affects children and gets in the way of their education. It explains how they can report bullying, and it explains that that is not only something they can do in writing, but they can provide an oral complaint that can be accepted and documented. It says that parents can reach out and report bullying to administration. It says that they can report it to administration, and if they don't feel comfortable talking to an administrator, they can talk to a trusted adult, such as a teacher or a counselor. In addition, we review these things annually with all of our students. I can attest to it. The high school, every year, at the beginning of school year, we do class meetings where we go over building code of conduct, and we talk about this is how you can get help if you're experiencing a problem. It's also something, as far as a policy goes, that is posted in every single classroom. Not because it's just a good idea, but this policy is required by state law to be posted in every single classroom. This is a policy that is also required to be reviewed every 3 years with the board and provide updates as needed. That's something that was just recently done in 2023. We are also, as a school district, district administration, according to our policy and state laws, to provide an annual Safe Schools report to you as the board in executive session that talks about our bullying policy, that talks about the number of incidents of bullying, and talks about all the prevention and intervention we're doing to help keep our kids safe. I say all this to say, if you want to understand how Big Spring is addressing and preventing bullying, just ask. Just ask. I would hope that by now you have learned, or those of you who are asking, that we're an open book and we're happy to talk about what's going well and where we need to improve. It's unfortunate that some people have negative experiences, but that doesn't speak for everybody's experience here at Big Spring. And so again, student safety is number one priority here for those of us that work at Big Spring. Please trust that that's happening and ask questions if you're not sure how things work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Evan, for your comments. Deborah Keeney, please.
At last month's school board meeting, there was quite a bit of discussion about the need for a formal written policy regarding a matter of some concern. We were told by teachers in attendance that there was no need for a formal written policy because there were already safeguards in place to address the concerns expressed. We were told that it was completely unnecessary to codify what was already the current practice and the de facto policy. Ironically, the very next day I came across the following news story. A school district in Colorado is accused of assisting an underage high school student to lie on a federal form to declare herself homeless so that she could move in with a female teacher with whom she had developed an inappropriate relationship. The KCNC-TV report said counselors at the high school kept the parents of the 17-year-old girl in the dark about the situation involving a social studies teacher at Columbine High School in Littleton. The mother of the girl only found out about her daughter's declaring herself an unaccompanied minor after discovering paperwork under her daughter's bed. The teen's mother brought her concerns to Scott Christie, the principal of Columbine High School, who reportedly said that he was aware of the situation. The mom allegedly sent the teacher a message warning her to stop contacting her daughter and hounded the school district to take action against the teacher. Eventually, the school district launched an investigation into the allegations and then issued a statement at its conclusion. Quote, obviously, the student did not meet the criteria to be considered homeless, and the staff involved in this isolated incident were addressed as part of the investigation as the proper channels in place were not followed. The school district told KCNC that it, quote, now has policies in place that ensures this situation never happens again, unquote. The state of Colorado eventually stripped the teacher of her education license. According to the New York Post, the revocation documents describe the teacher's behavior as grooming. This story is not an isolated incident. Similar stories have appeared over and over and over again across the country in just the last few months. Do you think any of these victims' families believe that the teachers in their schools would do such a thing? Probably not, until it happened to their child. Just like the parents in this story, Big Spring parents have trusted our teachers and our school district. After all, things like this could not happen in our town. Unfortunately, that isn't true. These things can happen anywhere, and it's incumbent upon our school board to make sure that formal, written policies and procedures are in place to protect innocent students from any adult who would use and abuse them for their own selfish purposes. Having written policies that expressly lay out the rules and the consequences of violating those rules should not be controversial. It's just common sense. It's unfortunate that it has become necessary to take such precautions, but that is the reality in today's world. Thank you.
comment cards? Thank you. Thank you all for your comments and your time, and thank each of you for coming this evening, whether you're joining us online or whether you're joining us in person. It's important that we have you with us so that we can make sure that we're being held accountable, that we're transparent, and that we are moving forward in the right direction for our students and our community. Approval of minutes, item number 6. Motion to approve the date committee, the committee of the whole, and the board meeting minutes for February 18th as presented. Do I have a motion, please? Motion, Mr. Myers, do I have a second? Second, Mrs. Shea. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I assume everyone's voting in affirmative unless I hear a negative or abstaining. Number 7, old business. Do we have any old business from the floor? Hearing none, we move into new business. Item number 8, new business personnel action items. Unless there's an objection from the floor, we will combine all new business personnel action items listed under number 8 into one motion. This will include 8A, recommended approval resignations, and 8B, recommended approval of athletic volunteers. Is there any objection to combining them into one motion? Do I have a motion to approve these recommendations? Motion, Mr. Myers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Foreman. Is there any discussion from the floor? Hearing none, I assume everyone's voting in the affirmative unless I hear negative or abstain for action items on personnel items. Moving on to 9, action items for this evening, new business. 9A, recommended approval, update the job descriptions for maintenance technician facility systems, maintenance technician electrical and security, and maintenance technician general maintenance plumbing. The administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve the updated job descriptions as presented. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion, Mr. Myers. Do I have a second? Second, Mrs. Shea. Do I have any discussion from the floor? Hearing none, I assume everyone's voting in the affirmative unless I hear negative or abstaining. 9B, request to apply for a grant. Mrs. Carissa Hayes, middle school principal, received a request for the following teacher to apply for a grant. Rebecca Lingo, middle school family consumer science teacher, is requesting permission to apply for the Explore Act Pell Grant, which engages young people in a project-based learning process where they learn about and act on solving hunger and food insecurity. The administration recommends approval for this grant. Do I have a motion from the floor? Motion, Mr. Foreman. Do I have a second? Second, Mr. Myers. Do I have any discussion? Yes, Mr. Foreman.
Is this the same grant we approved last year? This was a core group of students, it's not the whole class?
I believe it is. I believe we've received this grant before, correct, Dr. Hunter? Correct. Yes, we've received this before, and this is not a continuation of that, but it is a grant that she's applying for again to help with food security.
And it has the same stipulations as last time?
That's my understanding, yes.
It's 100% extra. That's fine.
I was just, since the link wasn't available for everybody to let the group off today, I want to make sure everybody understood that this was the same thing as last year. There's no changes. It's just
Another opportunity for our students to help with food for the community. Any more discussion? I assume everyone's voting in the affirmative unless I hear negative or abstaining. Moving on to 9C, recommended approval of community event and building utilization. This was discussed before. Rebecca Women, family and consumer science teacher, is requesting permission to host a community meal prep event on April 6, 2025 in the FCS classroom in the middle school. Because the utilization requires a Sunday, board action is necessary. The administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve the event and the building utilization as presented. Do I have a motion, please? Motion, Mr. Myers. Do I have a second? Second, Mrs. Shea. Is there any discussion from the floor? Hearing none, I assume everyone's voting in the affirmative unless I hear negative or abstaining. 9D, recommended approval of fundraisers. Mr. Scott Bennett, Director of Scott Athletics and Student Activities, recommends approval of the following fundraisers. They are listed there. Hopefully the community will support those activities, including the Bulldog Kickoff Bash, which is set for August 23rd. That's for next year. And we have a bingo November 25, held at the Penn Township Firehouse to benefit the athletic boosters. The administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve the 24-25 fundraisers as presented. Do I have a motion, please? Motion, Mr. Myers. Do we have a second? Second, Mrs. Shade. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Noble, let's vote in the affirmative unless I hear a negative or abstaining. Moving on to 9E, recommended approval of capital project fund payment. The following invoices for payment within the capital project fund to Lobar Associates. The administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve the invoice to be paid from the capital project fund. This project was approved at the April 8, 2024 board meeting last year. Do I have a motion to pay the bill? Motion, Mr. Myers. Do I have a second? Second, Mr. Shade. Is there any discussion from the floor? Hearing none, Mr. Noble, to vote in the affirmative unless I hear a negative or abstaining. Request for billing services. Julie Booth recommends that all businesses providing billing for services provided in our schools are business manager with a statement that they give no financial or material benefit to any person associated with the Big Spring School District and are unaware of any financial connections to anyone from the district other than the specific payment required by the contract of the district paid to the business manager's office. A standard form should be developed. Do I have a motion to approve this request recommended by Julie Booth? Motion, Julie Booth. Do I have a second? Second, Mr. Corman. Do I have discussion from the floor?
I looked into this and I found you have a current policy for this process. It's policy 827, titled Conflict of Interest. I reached out to the business manager who indicated this is a required process that is reviewed during our federal monitoring. She also said she is planning to roll out communication to the staff and board over the next few weeks.
So you're saying the policy is already in effect, we may not need to adopt this motion?
That's what it sounds like to me.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Corman?
That is correct. And I know, business manager is working diligently on that, and I just spoke about it.
So we have a couple of options. We can either move forward with this motion, or we could withdraw the motion, or we could say, we could lay it on the table, whatever we want to do as a board.
I say a motion lay on the table pending the outcome of business manager's efforts.
The smart parliamentary procedure thing to do would be withdraw your second from the motion, Mr. Corman, then there would need another second, and the motion would die for lack of second. So if you withdrew your second, then we need another second, or it would die for lack of second. That's the proper parliamentary procedure, correct, Mr. King? Am I correct on that? We had a motion in a second. If he withdraws his second, then the motion would die because there's no second. That's correct. Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Corman? Second to the motion has been withdrawn. Do we have another second from the floor? If we don't second it, which Mr. Corman did, then the motion would die for lack of second, and we would leave it up to the business manager, and then up to the policy 827, which is currently enforced, and we thank you, Mrs. Shade, for enforcing that. We good? Motion dies for lack of second. Request for a monitoring system, 9G. Julie Booth recommends assurance of quality and best use of resources by monitoring system for each student enrolled in therapy services which utilizes class time. So a report can be given to the board annually by administration showing improvement of measures for the students enrolled. Measures should include items monitored by the state, such as attendance, BSSD, and other educational benchmark measures used. The board needs data to ensure that the sacrifice of class time is showing a measurable benefit. So this motion is this request is being made by Julie Booth. Do I have a motion for that request? Motion by Mrs. Booth. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Corman. Do I have discussion from the floor?
I reached out to the counselor's department with this one. I had several questions. The department indicated the recommendation would violate human privacy rights to HIPAA. The department also made valid points about who can and should define the idea of measurable benefit. and the importance of the accessibility to the services being offered. I also found that when scheduling school-based services, the counseling department does rotate the appointment times to avoid pulling from the same classes repeatedly. And I was assured that the department does its best at all times to avoid pulling a student from a class they are failing, struggling, or have missed recently due to absence.
Thank you, Mrs. Shea, for that research. Do I have other comments, please?
I have a question as far as how do we determine, is it even in the school's interest to determine what students require therapy? Should that even be asked? We don't ask why the student is being excused for doctors, whatever the doctor's reasoning, if it's a dentist, medical, health, that shouldn't be asked.
This is a stupid request.
Thank you, Mr. Epstein. Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Point of order, there shouldn't be personal attacks on other board members.
Do we have any comments from the board regarding 9G, the request for a monitoring system? Yes, Mr. Corbin.
I am not in agreement with the monitoring system as worded on this statement. However, I do think that if classroom time is being utilized, we have to make sure that the student is also learning. The primary goal of an education facility is to educate. Our only requirement health-wise by law is to return the student no worse than that they have arrived. We are not a health facility. Now, I do recommend that we have the guidance counselors cooperate with the parents and have these sessions, whether they're before classes or after classes. But I do recommend that the guidance team and the parent and the counselor decide that the classroom time needs to be taken some sort of time to make sure it's not detrimental to students. Number one, we're an education facility, not a health facility.
Okay, I disagree with that. I think we're a safe place. That's health. I think we're a mental health place. These kids, they need help. And I think this is the only place they're going to get it. I don't think it's our business as a board to know what's going on with the student. I have every faith in our administration and our teachers taking care of our kids. Yes, there are incidents that do happen, and unfortunately it does happen, but I think there are more good than bad at Big Spring. I don't know any bad at Big Spring, to be honest with you, so I apologize for that comment. It is our responsibility to take care of the kids. And I don't think it's our purpose up here, it shouldn't be our purpose up here to say, hey, is this kid getting enough classroom? I think it's a mental thing now that we should be taking care of that in society. I think you're wrong. I think this is crossing a border that we should not be even attempting to look into this. The kids need help, we give it to them. End of story. Whatever it is, I think we should give it to them. If a kid needs help, I don't care what they do to get it. If it's at school, they get it. They should.
Thank you, Mr. Ober. Do I have other comments from the floor?
Where do you draw the line?
Mr. Fisher?
My take on the issue is I understand fully that there are some children who need, also that's not going to be happening here, but we need counseling services. Matter of fact, my sister will be in a few years taking courses to become a counselor. I understand that. But the primary purpose of a school, as defined what a school is educational purposes. I think if we start saying, give a kid whatever he needs, where we draw the line, now we're going to have where to draw the line. It can continue forever. What a kid needs, if he's not going to get at home, where does it end? School is an education facility. I think we should keep that way.
Mr. Ober?
Okay. my first thing, and this will stick, I'll write this down. My first thing is whatever the kids need, they should deserve it. The first thing all of us should be worried about is the kids. Then it should be the teachers. Thirdly, sorry everyone that's out there, it's the taxpayers. But kids and teachers are first. You give them a safe place to be. You help them out if they need it. It's all for the kids. What else do you say?
Yeah, I hear the comments that have been presented. Do we have other comments before we vote or change the motion?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Booth.
I'd like to comment on this since it was my motion.
Yes.
So this is a stopgap between not having a policy in place currently and what we should have already in place as a policy. What we approved the last meeting, the group that was here, Campus Psychological Services, was working in our schools for the last 4 years without a contract. For the last year, after this board passed a motion where we were to have contracts in place with all third-party organizations that were taking up classroom time, they continue to provide services without a contract. So, we don't have a policy currently that states we have any oversight into this. And the idea that where does it stop is true. We can say it's helping the kids, but if we have not even looked into if it is or is not helping, and in the last 4 years I would hope that the professionals that have been recommending this would know already that it is helping, if they have more than just one student's case, but they have gathered the data and said, yes, these students, this group, aggregate, so therefore it's not breaking HIPAA violation, it's not a HIPAA violation. We as the board aren't asking for specifics on any student. We are asking for aggregate data to show that yes, there is an overall improvement. So when these students give these several hours a week to the therapy in class, there's an overall improvement in their academic factors, engaging behavior. I didn't put that on there because it's not commented by the state and declared by the state as our responsibility as a school district to educate these students. So I didn't go that far in this motion, but I think it's just baseline. And you know, as a medical professional, the main goal is to cause no harm. So to go with the working mentality that all therapy is good is negligent. We may not be providing good therapy. I'm not saying we're not. We might be providing the best therapy that exists in this world. But to say, let's send, if therapy is good, and we can only ever see this, which is a medical treatment, as good, without any check to see if it's actually helping or hurting. We're providing a medical treatment, given the school time. Now, another part of it is that we, as a school board, are deciding to do this in our building. We're allowing the students to leave class in the building, which is helpful, probably to the parents who gave consent one time for this pull out to the therapy. Hopefully, we don't have a policy in place that if the parent decides, well, now my child is doing worse at home, my child is doing worse with their academics, that the parent could be able to step in. But the truth is that if the student is over 14 years old, according to Campbell Psychological Services website, they sign their own consent. So the parent is not then able to step in and say, you know, this is not really a good use of their class time. So the point of this is for the board to have an ability to see, is this overall a good thing for our students? If it is not, maybe we need to evaluate and decide, is it good, is it not good? But if there is no monitoring system in place whatsoever, there's no way to know.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Booth, for your comments. Is there other comments from the floor before we vote or change the motion?
Yes, I do have one, please. I have a concern with the term measurable benefit. Should the district be the one defining the term measurable benefit? A student may show academic decline, however, they may be making measurable progress according to their goals and plans in therapy. So, I mean, is it the district's place to define measurable benefit?
Yes, Mr. Corbin?
It is, because our number one objective is education. That's what a school is. That's what the law is set up. That's what school law is set up to provide, is an education to the students. So our number one responsibility to the students in the community is to provide education. So if their academic performance is being hurt by the therapy time, then we need to come up with other therapy times. Now, I'm open to suggestions like we allow the school therapy time to happen after classes, or during the lunch period or something. But there should be a measurement to say this kid is slipping in math. They need their math time back.
But what's the definition of measurable benefit? I mean, it depends on the eye of the beholder. If it's the therapist and the parent, they might be thinking measurable benefit is something else than what the district would be defining it as.
Yeah, and I'm fine if the parent doesn't want to sign off on it. If the parent's like, I understand that my kid's slipping in math, but I want them to continue these sessions, I'm fine with the parent saying that. But what I'm saying is we need to have some sort of system in place to say, the kid is slipping in these, parent, what do you want to do from here? And right now we have nothing in paper that enforces that, so it's the Wild West. So we need to have something set up.
If we have a lunch period, I don't know what it's called, WIN or flex, where these kids, if they're hurting in math, they can go and recover in math, and we have that.
Yes, I believe that is in place.
Am I correct that flex time has been used on the classes because of the academic situation? Or is that the change?
Repeat that.
Flex, I understood that flex time is being used to supplement class time because of the academic situation of the school. Is that correct, or is that no longer the case?
Utilize it for student success.
Correct. So it's not just free time at this time,
Correct.
where we can do it other sources.
Yeah. It's concentrated for academic improvement.
Scheduled stuff, not just, okay, I need help with math or I need help with English depending on where they, it's something that's scheduled for them. Is that correct?
It's targeted for their personal growth.
Okay, so we're up to a vote unless I hear any amendments.
I'd just like to say one more thing, Mr. President.
Yes, Mrs. Stewart.
I just have the question for each board member before you vote. Would it harm for Dr. Durante or Dr. Sanders to do, and for the counseling department, to gather this data? They are making these referrals of these students. They are losing class time. Would it be harmful until there is a policy put in place for there to be a gathering of data by the professionals in place so that they have something, and this is was made to deliberately be kind of open, pointing to the different measures that they could choose to use. Would it harm anything for them to go ahead and start a system where they monitor if it is beneficial by some of the measures that they choose?
Are you suggesting that we allow the monitoring up to the administration and they report back to us and change the motion from the board requirement to allowing the administration to establish a monitoring system?
Yes, right now the motion reads, measures should include items monitored by the state, such as, meaning specifically spelled out what they monitor. Those were suggestions, and that would be left up to the administration to fully decide specifically how they were going to measure that. But it's specifically designed for them to gather some data to provide an answer to the board in about a year, whether or not we're seeing improvement or not.
So could we leave it up to the administration to provide information to the board within a year, monitoring things that help student success?
Yes, that's the whole general idea.
Do you want to change the motion to that statement, or do you want to leave it the way it is?
Let's scratch the last part of it that says measures should include, where it starts that whole sentence. Let's scratch that sentence and change it to measures should be determined by administration according to our educational goals.
And you're crossing out the last sentence also, or that stays?
It can be crossed out. It was just an informational sentence, so we can cross it as well.
So I'm reading that Julie Booth recommends the first three lines and then measures should be done by the administration to determine what things they want to monitor in regards to students' success.
with regards to our educational goals.
Educational goals. The second to that motion was Mr. Corman, is that correct? Do you agree with the changes that Mrs. Booth has made? Okay, other comments from the floor now that changes have been made to the recommendation, and it has a motion and a second. Okay, so you have two choices if we're going to proceed to vote, since I hear no other amendments or changes. You can either vote to approve. If I say, then, I'm not saying it yet, but if I say
Objection.
Yes.
Under Pennsylvania Sunshine Act 65, if there is going to be an amendment made to the agenda, the board first needs to vote to approve making an amendment.
Can you go to the podium?
I'm objecting under Sunshine Act 65 of Pennsylvania law. If an agenda is going to be amended, first, a vote must be made by the board to amend the agenda. Second, there are three conditions under which the agenda can be amended. However, I'm also objecting under Sunshine Act in the point that this agenda item is vague. Ms. Booth just said it was purposefully made to be open-ended. So, also under the Sunshine Act and related case law, specifically the Reading Eagle case, the description of the agenda item must be, quote, of sufficient specificity to inform that there is, in reality, a specific discrete matter or area which the board has determined should be discussed. In sum, avoid general cryptic terms and provide as many specific concrete details as possible. This agenda motion is vague. It is not appropriate to be voted on at this time because the community who received the agenda did not have proper understanding. It does not clarify what therapy is being referred to. Is it speech therapy? Is it occupational therapy? Furthermore, the items which we are going to measure are not clearly defined. I would recommend that the board put this motion aside until it can be clarified and presented appropriately on an agenda under the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act. Thank you.
Mr. King, our solicitor, your comments on our process, should we wait until we can have this reworded and appropriately posted for the next meeting, or what do you suggest?
Well, the purposes of the Sunshine Law, as the speaker correctly cited from the case that addresses this issue, but what's required under the law is that an agenda give the public and the board a clear idea of what's going to be presented at the meeting. So what's presented is pretty clear in Section 9G with respect to the request. What was ultimately suggested and amended is less than what was presented on the agenda. So I think it's clear, and I think the public has had fair notice as required under the law of what was intended. And so this motion is something less than what was presented, but it's still in line and consistent with what's provided in the agenda. So I think the motion is appropriate, and the board can vote as it sees fit up or down.
Thank you, Mr. King. So we've had a change to 9G, basically keeping the first three lines and then making an adjustment as Mrs. Booth presented. Mrs. Booth, could you read your last sentence, please? Because the first 3.5 are printed.
If I might, wouldn't it clearly be the intent to have an annual report on the therapy program and its effect in the school? Isn't that basically what's being asked for? And if you don't mind, if I could,
please.
This is something that basically is going to have to happen anyway because you have this contract. This is a little bit unusual. A lot of schools have psychologists that they employ, and so they oversee those psychologists. In this circumstance, this is a private company that's operating within your schools. and you have a license agreement that you've provided. So in some respects, it's important that the administration, I have great confidence that Dr. Durante and the administrators would be able to make a recommendation to you whether or not they want to suggest that you continue this license agreement, because the license agreement itself provides that it can be terminated on 30 days notice by either side. So as I understand, the gist of this motion would be that on an annual basis, the administration provides some review with respect to what's going on in this situation. I understand the comments about HIPAA. Fully versed in HIPAA. I represent a healthcare organization, and so I don't think that the motion as revised is going to require the divulgence of any HIPAA-protected information about specific students. But in any event, the administration is going to have to make a recommendation, at least on an annual basis, as to whether to continue this program or not. So I think that's the gist of the motion, would be to require the administration to provide on an annual basis a report with respect to the continued license agreement in the school and the program's continuation. If you had something like that, and that met what the maker and seconder of the motion wanted, it seems to me that's pretty clear and rather simple. You know.
Object to that? May I make an objection?
Mr. Oldham?
This is not public comment time.
I feel really weird objecting to the lawyer. Okay, I'm going to say that right now. I just want to make sure that I'm clarifying. This does not say I want to have an annual update of the contract with Campbell Psychological Associates, which also does not now replace our school psychologists. We employ school psychologists like every other school district, and this is a common practice in any school district. We are not paying for these services, and parents have agreed that they are necessary.
The motion does call for an annual review by the administration, and I think it's clear what the intent of that review is.
Can you define therapy then? Because therapy could be speech, it could be occupational therapy, it could be autism support, it could be a lot of things that are not defined here.
Yeah, I don't think in the revised motion that the term therapy specifically is used, because there are other types of therapy that an IU might, for example, provide, or other persons might provide. I think this is specifically related, if I understand it correctly, and I could be corrected if I'm wrong, but I think this is related specifically to the license agreement that we discussed at the last meeting with the private company that provides these services in school. If I'm mistaken on that, I'm happy to be corrected.
If that were what that said, I would agree with you, but it doesn't say that. So, if what you just said is what this motion said, I would agree with you. But it is vague and does
You
not
wouldn't
say
agree with anybody.
Like an annual update of the Campbell Psychological Associates contract.
Well, and that's why the discussion right now is what is the appropriate motion to get to the successful conclusion of this particular discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Oldham. Mr. Hippensteel?
Mr. President, I believe maybe we should table this to have it reworded so it's more specific and it's clear to people voting on exactly what we're voting on. I'm finding a lot of confusion.
Is that a motion to table?
Motion to table.
Table oversees the main motion. Do I have a second to table? Second by Mr. Myers. Is there discussion on tabling? It is a discussionable topic. Hearing none, we're ready to vote. Yes, Mr. Fisher?
I mean, it seems like there's a common understanding that this is about a specific issue, maybe not specifically worded for Campbell's therapy services. It seems, at least among the board, that that's understood, that's what it's supposed to be.
Might be understood, but it needs to be.
I understand that. I was going to say that. We were talking before that something that's less is okay if we lessen the motion. So if it's understood by some that maybe therapy services is too general, if we make that more specific, and that something less than Campbell's motion.
Right. The motion currently is on to lay it on the table. and we've had a second to that. So at this point, we're voting on laying it on the table, which will supersede the motion at this point, and it will have to be revised and brought back to the board with the proper wording.
I guess my point was, I think tabling it is not necessary. We can make it more specific. Why making it less than what it actually is?
Thank you for your comments. Is there other comments on laying it on the table? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote on laying the table. If you vote in the affirmative, as I state, that will count as a positive vote. If you vote negative and say no, then that would be reported as a no. And then if there were a majority of no's, then we would not lay it on the table and we would refer back to the main motion to have more discussion or vote. Does everyone understand? Okay, at this time, I assume that everyone's voting in the affirmative, unless I hear a negative or abstain. I hear 2 no's, I hear 3 no's. Are there other? Okay, I hear 3 no's. The rest I assume are affirmative. That means that we're going to lay this on the table until there's more information and a clearer picture for what this motion is suggesting. Is that recorded? Donna, do you have it recorded that we have voted to lay it on the table? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 9H. Approve 2025 summer capital projects. As the board has looked over these projects, these are not the first time we've seen them. These projects are to help make our buildings safer, to repair some items, for example, new elementary, the main sewer line, to improve and upgrade sidewalks and repairs for safety, direct repair at the high school to prevent further damage. Most of these are being brought out of the capital reserve or the maintenance budget. We do have a grant we're putting in place for the security cameras. The total is $282,430. Again, several of these were actually even approved last year with some seal coating and painting. Mr. Drawbaugh is here this evening if we have any questions, but at this point I would take a motion to approve the 2025 summer capital projects as presented. Motion, Mr. Myers, do I have a second? Second, Mrs. Shade, do I have discussion from the floor? Yes, Mr. Hickensteel.
There was on the original list, there was about the speakers at the one school. That's been removed, I see.
That's still under consideration at this point, so nothing that we're prepared to bring to the board.
So we are not voting on that.
Correct.
It hasn't been lost, it just has not been asked to be approved at this time. My understanding is that when we approved these this evening, and we did receive several bids for each of the items, that these items then we can move forward with, and they can be started in the process so they can be completed before next school year. Is that correct, Dr. Dante?
That's correct.
Any other discussion from the floor?
Mr. President, one question I have.
Yes.
Dr. Durante and I reviewed these projects earlier. But with respect to the technology department and security cameras, were those bid also? How are we buying?
Right now, the only thing we're doing is approving the dollar allotment. So we're just approving it not to exceed 50 grand, and then we're going to go through the process to secure the security cameras. Just dollar amount. We're not that far yet. We're just trying to figure out how much money do we have to work with.
Thank you, Mr. King. Other discussion from the floor? Hearing none, I assume everyone's voting in the affirmative to approve the 2025 summer capital projects, unless I hear a negative or abstain. Okay, those projects are approved. Thank you to all who had input in those projects to make our buildings safer and better for our students and community. I have no other regular action items. I do have some information items. I have none. So we'll move into board reports, unless there's anything else from the floor. Hearing none, Athletic Council, Mr. Ken Fisher. Next meeting, I believe, is April 2nd. Mr. Fisher? I hear nothing else. Mr. Fisher, Building and Property Committee?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Capital Area Unit, Mr. Corman? you. CTC, myself and Mr. Hippensteel, we did both attend the last meeting, received some update on electrical controls by a couple students and instructor. We also went through the process. The bids are out presently for the new construction. We're waiting them back soon, and hopefully they will be in line so we can continue with that project. The investment that we made to that project has been put in an account interest bearing, so that we have made our payment towards that project, and hopefully that will continue in a very positive way. Mr. Hippensteel, do you have anything to add? Thank you. Julie Booth, Dig Committee.
Yes, we had a meeting tonight. We discussed a few items. We discussed some of what was passed at the last meeting, and we're prepared to pass some of that along to the board. We also voted to add 2 new meetings that will tentatively be March 31st and April 14th at 6 o'clock. The location will be determined. Those will be advertised before they would happen. And also, I would just like to make note that at the DIG committee meetings, we are welcoming everyone who has suggestions. We've heard a lot of comments about how we already had this and we already had that. Some of what we're seeing is that people are leaving. We can see that with our budget. We can see that with the numbers. And so it's important to take note that we are interested in ideas to improve what we're already doing at those meetings.
Thank you, Mrs. Booth. And the committee, the finance committee, Mrs. Booth.
Next meeting will be March 17th.
Thank you. Future Ready Comprehensive Plan, Mr. Ken Fisher, anything, sir? No. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Policy Review and Development, Mr. Corman.
Our next meeting is March 17th. Hope to see everybody there.
Thank you, Mr. Corman. Mr. Corman, South Central Trust.
We are waiting to hear back from stakeholders to see whenever their availability is to hold our first meeting since we reformed the committee. So we're waiting for stakeholders to give us a time in the day. Once we have that, then we'll make a public announcement of the meeting and we'll have that taken care of.
Thank you, Mr. Corman. David Fisher, Tax Collection Committee, please. Thank you. Wellness Committee, Mr. Corman, anything special? Okay. Future board agenda items from the floor. Is there anything? Dr. Bronte, your superintendent's report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. High school musical is fast approaching. Newville students got a sneak peek of that the other day, and from all accounts, it is a wonderful performance. March 13th through March 16th, and tickets are available online, so we encourage everybody to make an appearance and support our students in their musical endeavors. Newville also had a busy month last month. They had 2 cross-curricular activities with the high school students that turned out to be extremely successful. One concentrated with a cultural mini festival, including salsa, Spanish bingo, and salsa dancing. The appropriate kind of salsa dancing. So while the second graders participated in STEM lessons, which focused on ice cream, how can elementary school students not like ice cream, that highlighted solid and liquid substances. The high school students were absolutely fabulous as teachers, and the younger students enjoyed themselves as well. And 2 shouts out to Mrs. Ashley Odom and Mr. Sean Donaldson for providing those opportunities and facilitating that cross-curricular activity. Last month, our district did hold the annual Bill Gillette Special Olympics, and that was a great event in the pool. Lots of smiling kids, from our high school kids to our special needs kids to the consortium kids, which is all 6 surrounding school districts of ours participated. So that was a wonderful morning of laughter and joy. Our transportation RFP is going to be open until March 14th, and the mandatory pre-bid meeting will be held tomorrow. So hopefully we'll have an update for you here in the near future. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Bronte. Thank you for all your work and what you do for our students as well as the rest of the administrators and teachers. Other business from the floor, each of the board members. Mr. David Fisher, do you have any comments, sir?
Just a couple things here. Deborah King commented about the policy to address parent consent. In the last meeting, I asked that we make policy, or at least
sort of policy to address that issue, so we get ahead of those issues that she's talking about. I have seen rough drafts that the solicitor and Seth is working on, so there's progress being made there. Also, I was sent, I guess you'd say, some BSSD scores, which made me a little curious. I started looking, went to the PA.gov website and pulled some BSSD scores from all the school districts in Cumberland County, and I was absolutely blown away. There are a total of 8 school districts in Cumberland County. Big Spring is ranking, I dare say, at the bottom of all of those 8 as far as students that are proficient and above in 11th grade. This year's, my understanding would be this year's seniors. This is 2024 PSSA scores. We had 28.4% proficient and above in Algebra 1. That is the lowest in Cumberland County. I thought maybe I'd give us a little bit of a break and think maybe we're surrounded by a lot of smart people. So I went to the whole state, and I found there are 496 total school districts in Pennsylvania, and we are ranking 414 out of 496. That puts us at spot 82 from the bottom in math and all of, in Algebra 1 specifically in 11th grade in all of Pennsylvania. I find that absolutely astonishing. We also, not just math or specifically Algebra 1, in literature, our 11th grade students, 50% of our students are proficient in literature, 50% are proficient and above in literature. That puts us also at the lowest in Cumberland County. And our 11th grade students in biology, proficient above 49.9%. That puts us second lowest in all of Cumberland County, second only to Shippensburg Area School District at 47.5. That's 0.4% difference. It just blew my mind. In our 8 school districts in the county, we are ranking the lowest in 11th grade PSSAs, and that's very concerning to me. To be honest, Big Spring has a special place in my heart, always will, because of the experience I've had here. We heard last week how one of the teachers moved to Big Spring because Big Spring has a good community, and I would agree with that. This is extremely concerning to me, and quite honestly, it blew my mind.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Corman?
I'm going to point out the places that we are doing really well. All of our extracurricular students are doing really well. So, business department with their project is doing really well, and FAA is always doing really well. I'm trying to figure out where we can get our scores back up and see what type of changes we need to make. It's really hard whenever we keep hearing that everything's fine and Big Spring is great, and I agree Big Spring is great, but we need to take a hard look at what we're teaching and how we're teaching it, because we need to be at the top of this list, and we can do it, so we need to get there.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Again, please.
I just want to say, I don't intend to be, my whole point of this was not to be negative, like Seth said, positive. And I get that. I would have thought this was done well because it's positive, and it came out very negative. That's not my intention. And I just want to find out how we can make this better and look with a positive outcome.
Thank you, Mr. Corman and Mr. Fisher. Mr. Ken Fisher, please.
Just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight.
Thank you, Ken. Mr. Over?
Big Spring rocks. Mr. Brown, monetary donation at Belco. Will that work for SPY? How do I give you money? I'm not going to buy crayons. I'll give you money. Okay. We're still the best.
Thank you, Mr. Over. Mr. Myers?
Yeah, Big Spring rocks, I agree. They are. I did also want to commend Grante was mentioning some things, but we have some wrestlers, girls and boys, going to states. We also have a basketball team, boys basketball team, Friday night playing up at Valley View, hours away, but we want to wish them well. And swimmers are going to states, who did I miss? But all of those folks, they work hard. And as far as our scores, I mean, of course that's what we're here for, but you also have to look at our staff and all the work they're putting in. That's what they're here for, to do the best they can with the students that they have. And I truly believe they are doing all they can to make those kids the best they can be. I have faith in them.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Mrs. Shea?
Okay, so I thought I'd take a few minutes to share about a little reading adventure I took this week. Over the last few weeks, the Orange Frog program kept coming up. Dr. Bronte recently spoke of it in the district e-news, and it came up again when I was asking questions and preparing research for the last big meeting. Naturally, I was curious and wanted to educate myself. In typical fashion, I reached out to the administration with questions, who then provided me with a treasure trove of information, including a copy of a book, a comic book, and I even received a little orange rubber pen to share my reading adventure. So I went straight to the source, conducted my own research, and formed my own opinion of the program. Now, before I get into my findings, I'd like everyone to meet Squirt. There's Squirt. Yes. He isn't much of a collaborator, but he's a pretty good reading companion. In the future, when I say we, you know who I mean. So Squirt and I started our journey by looking into some basic facts. Big Spring takes proactive action by participating in the Orange Frog program across the district, which focuses on positivity. Also, it is noted that the students do not take part in this program. The Orange Frog is a parable based on positive psychology, authored by Sean Asher. The book is 94 pages. It's sparking a culture of positivity, happiness, and success, and yes, I did read it. Next, Squirt and I defined parable, a short narrative illustrating a lesson by a comparison or analogy. After that, we spent a little time looking into the backstory of the author, Sean Asher. He has a Harvard Master's in Christian and Buddhist ethics. He travels the world speaking on science research and spent over a decade living, researching, and lecturing at Harvard University. We then looked into the author's research and findings. This is from his website. Asher's research shows that happiness leads to success, not the other way around. He's found that people who are successful at maintaining high levels of confidence and leadership believe that their behavior matters. His research has also shown that how we perceive the world reflects on how we interpret motivation, emotion, and intelligence. And last, I wanted to share an excerpt from his book, The Happiness Advantage, which is I've shared up there on the visual. We've been taught that if we work hard, we will be successful, and then we'll be happy. If we can just find a great job, get a raise, lose those 5 pounds, happiness will follow. But recent discoveries in the field of positive psychology have shown that this formula is actually backward. Happiness fuels success, not the other way around. When we are positive, our brains become more engaged, creative, motivated, energetic, resilient, and productive. This discovery has been repeatedly supported by research in psychology and neuroscience, management studies, and bottom lines of organizations around the world. Okay, so now we have the mindset of the author, and we're going to hop into a quick overview of the Orange Frog parable. These are a few notes we took while reading. This is a narrative story being told by a scientist doing research on a recently discovered frog island, literally named Island. The basis of the story focuses on 4 frogs who turned from tadpoles to frogs at the same exact time. We'll just call them siblings. Their names were Misty, Bull, Spark, and Pluck. The main character is Spark. The frogs on the islands used to be vibrant and colorful, but are now green, with the exception of Spark, who has patches of orange. The story moves into a quick, witty science lesson on frogs and their life cycle. We find that frogs are at the adult stages of their life and are ready to head out on their own. The frogs put in for their desired habitat, having 4 different pond environments in which to choose. These are my descriptions of the environments: the hard-working achievers pond, the party frog pond, the loafers pond, and then the unpopular overflow pond with rumors of scary parents. So the story follows a small group of frogs, including the 4 siblings, who did not get their desired location and are all sent to the unpopular overflow pond. Spark, who originally chose the hard workers pond, is odd because of his orange spots. Spark's orange stripes as he works hard and is growing his positive outlook and confidence. He finds he's becoming happier the more orange he becomes. He connects his orange growth and positivity with his happiness and decides to embrace his positivity happiness, which turns him completely orange. After being situated in his new pond, Spark realizes that his newly found orangeness is great for fly catching. So he starts a business with his fly catching. Catching flies is something the ordinary green frogs seem to struggle with. He shows his siblings the secrets of positivity and how it connects with happiness, confidence, and brings success. The 4 siblings then go around sharing their orange positivity, creating happiness, and bringing success all over Pond 4. The story goes on with an incoming storm, and they begin to warn the frogs on the other ponds, which spreads more orange positivity. I won't go any further because I think you all get the point. What we're being shown is positivity and happiness support confidence and success. The lessons of the story: being positive, orange, is contagious. Being positive, orange, is adaptive, innovative, and more effective even in new environments. If you've ever worked in a negative environment, I think we can appreciate the importance of these lessons. I see this program as a great tool for focusing and encouraging the importance of positive thinking. Happiness supports confidence, creativity, motivation, and fuels success. In conclusion, I'd like to encourage everyone, if you're unfamiliar with something within the district or have questions, dig in. Do your own research, educate yourself, and form your own opinions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Shea. Mrs. Booth?
Yes. I'd like to just point out a couple things. I feel like this was a very good meeting with lots of good discussion. I appreciate all of the public's input. I would like to sort of second something that Mr. Ober said earlier. We need to put the kids first, teachers second, and then the taxpayers. And I would like to add that the parents also go in there with the kids hand in hand, and it's super important to involve them. According to our own belief statement, we believe that all students can learn. I believe we can improve those BSSD scores. To overlook them or pretend that they're important is overlooking one of our main responsibilities. Family and community responsibility and involvement are essential to each child's educational success. Our belief statement says that the parents are important. The family is important. We need to involve them. We need to be communicating with them. We believe in a district-wide accountability and reporting system that provides meaningful information to the entire school community. I still believe in that, and I'd like to see more of it. The district must utilize resources in a responsible, efficient, and effective manner. I think that goes along with what our taxpayers expect from us as elected officials in this capacity. To accept that one student had to leave the school this year, which I spent over an hour talking to one mother who did pull her student from the school district. To accept that as acceptable and fine, we already have a bullying policy in place. I refuse to accept that, and I will never stop working until that is no longer a story to be told. I've heard comments about how their children were picked on, and these issues went on for 3 school years. I'm not going to accept that, and I'm sorry that anyone here does. I know we can do better, and the whole purpose of the work that I have done here is to do better and to encourage others to do better. So I hope we can do that and move forward together in a positive direction and get the support we need to make positive change and improvements for this district.
Mr. Eccleston?
Yes, Mr. Brown, I want to thank you very much. You lit a spark in my daughter. I wasn't sure what direction she was going to go for after her senior year this year. But with what you've done, I'm seeing something that I like. And I want to thank you very much for that. Did any other board members get invited for the blood drive or go to the blood drive?
I wasn't invited.
Well, apparently I'm the sucker that got stuck. I don't know what the outcome of the blood drive was, but I look forward to hearing what that was, but it looked like a big success. I haven't given blood since 1997, so that was fun. It was actually pretty simple. I was in and out in 20 minutes, but I encourage everybody, next time they have a blood drive, to attend that. It is very streamlined, simple, and straightforward. I don't have anything else, so I appreciate everybody. One thing. I know Dr. Oldham had talked about the item that we discussed tonight, and I would hope that we can come together with the administration, Dr. Oldham, and come up with something, because I do see what Mrs. Booth is talking about. I just wasn't in favor with how that was written, and if there could be a collaborative way to come up with something that we can all agree on, I think that would be beneficial. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston.
Mr. Worrell, can I get an update on the blood?
Please.
So you're one of 46 suckers. 37 pints of blood collected. Each pint can be separated into 3 different components, allowing the Central Pennsylvania Blood Bank to help with 111 local patients in need. So we'll be broadcasting that as well. So successful on that. Thanks for bringing it up.
I wish you would have brought it up before they did it.
As we close this evening, I would like to comment on Mr. David Fisher. First of all, David, I thank you for bringing those numbers to our attention. I guess I look at things not from a different lens. I do think it's very important that we're not last and we're not even middle. We do want to be at the top and be our best. But I realize a few facts. 25% of our students have IEPs. 41% of our students come with free and reduced lunch. And this test was about algebra. Now, I don't think that algebra is bad, but it wasn't about consumer math with Mr. Ryan. It wasn't about FFA and budgets with our FFA kids. It wasn't about getting a loan, paying interest, or balancing a checkbook. It was about algebra. I've given that test 33 years straight. I would challenge each of us to take the test. But you know what? We can't, because legislatures that knew nothing wrote the test. We don't even know the questions. Am I right on that, Dr. Gronte? We are not allowed as teachers to know what the questions are.
Correct.
Correct. So we are giving a test that we don't know the questions nor the answers. Think about that for a minute. That is legislated for us to give, that we don't know how to teach to it because we don't know what the questions are. Those are just facts. As I gave the test, I wasn't even allowed to look over the kid's shoulder and see what the questions were. I had to take a test to tell the kid to use a pencil. Am I right on that, teachers? Yes. So I'm not saying the test is invalid, but it is. I think we should be testing consumer math. I think we should be testing other things about math so that we get our kids ready for the real world. How to get a job, how to balance a checkbook, how to balance a budget, how to do those things. And I think those things are things we thrive in. Mr. Ronnie mentioned tonight that each of our students have to take consumer math as a senior, correct, Dr. Brown? Yeah, Mr. Brown, excuse me, mentioned that, but correct, each student has to take that as a senior, right? The consumer math, yeah, personal finance, excuse me. So I look at the results with a grain of salt because I know that our students are doing better. It's just how do we report that and get that information out, and so that each of us understand the quality of the test that's being given. I would like to know what the results are from our cyber schools. I would like to know what the results are from other schools of our like mind and normal demographics of who we are. But I do believe we have room for improvement, definitely. I'd like to see the numbers double, but I realize it takes time. I realize it takes new strategies. We just adopted a new math curriculum. We need to give that time to take effect and time to make a purpose for our students. On a couple of positive notes, I'm extremely excited to see the number of our students participating in spring sports. I was in the buildings today, and to just see the excitement on the kids' faces as they were running out the field, and they didn't have snow on them. That was exciting. I was also excited to see numbers of our students going on to not just, another event, but states. That's quite an accomplishment for our community and for our students, and I hope we will support them. Also, as I saw a note the other day that we're almost through the third marking period. Here in March, we hit the third marking period. That's it just seems like the year's flying by, the success of our students. And lastly, we are a community. We are here tonight and here online and here till 9 o'clock because we care. We care about each other. We care about our students. We care about our fellow board members. We want to have unity, success, trust, and respect. Those things are important for our community and for our kids. We can never lose sight of that. Thank you.
Before you finish?
Yes.
I wanted to comment a little bit, Mr. Fisher. It's funny that you mentioned about levels of proficiency. One thing that we've been very focused on for the last 2 years is growth. And growth is an individual metric. Proficiency is just a benchmark that somebody in the lab decided that that's what everybody should concentrate on. The irony of it all is the Act 158 pathway has put only a small measure on proficiency. So when I was interviewed for that Sentinel article, they're highlighting proficiency as a negative. But yet by the state metrics and 158 pathways, they have a composite score where you don't have to be proficient in all 3 scores to actually be successful. One thing that's going to be completely responsible for us is to define our level of success as it relates to the individuals that we serve. And I led a national blue ribbon school district, and we weren't successful in some capacities relative to certain kids, but our scores were great. And I can tell you that I have names in my head we probably did not do the best service for, because they were not kids that were geared towards upper level academics, but we made them sit there. You know what I'm saying? And we achieved at that high level because it was no child left behind is what we were told to do. So I think it's extremely important that our kids, our academic achievement is representative of what's the kids' next pathway. And if 28% is not it, then we need to get 42%. But I don't know that 99% is it either. We come in here and say we're 99% proficiency and not be serving 50% of our student population. So as a staff and as an administration, we are searching very hard to find what is that ceiling without compromising the development of all of our students. And for the last couple of years, our administration and our staff have been hard at work trying to formulate what does the next 5 years look like in a comprehensive totality plan. And that'll be rolled out once we get organized and situated. But I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your focus on academics. And I also want to qualify the fact that even within the state metrics, proficiency and the Act 158 are in conflict. And our job is to serve our students and make sure that they can make the transition from the K through 12 academic world and be successful when they get out of it. And for some kids, that's going to require higher level academics, but I'm sure we've had some people on the sit here that didn't need it, and they're pretty darn successful. And our job is to matriculate a school system that serves all of those students. So just want to let you know you're heard, we're working on it, and we're hopeful that we'll implement some things here in the near future.
Thank you, Dr. Bronte. Any other comments from the board? Hearing none, I assume it's time to adjourn. Do I have a motion? Motion, Mr. Shea. Do I have a second? Second, Mr. Myers. There is no discussion.